Hello, everyone, and welcome to Fan Sports New York Varsity. I'm your host, Frank Langella, joined by my co-host, Marcelio Langella. And Mars, this is our week preview for Section 1A football. And again, another really important week. We're now beyond the halfway point in the regular season, where now you start looking at the division and trying to get yourself into the playoff hunt, and those that have struggled are trying to turn things around. So really important as we get beyond the season, teams kind of shaping on where they're headed for the season. March, but how's it going to start it off?
It's going well, man. I feel like the fact that we're already halfway there is already, it's just wild. I mean, I feel like it feels like the season just started, and now we're already flies. Yeah, it's going by so quickly. And
we want to welcome our audience. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. If you're new, we cover Section 1 football. We talk about the players and the games. And if you're returning, thank you so much for coming back. And again, if you haven't followed us, make sure you guys follow us on all our social media accounts on the screen. Make sure you subscribe on our YouTube channel. And you can always get our content on our website at famsportsny.com, where you can also make donations to the show and buy merchandise if that interests you. And we appreciate any donations from our fans. We really do appreciate it. But Mars, how it's going to go? We're going to go over the games on slate, talk a little bit about the two divisions because we are getting closer to the playoff time. So you got to definitely keep your eye on that, and then we'll do some previews, and then we'll do the game picks. All right. So let's get into it, Mars. Talk about the games on slate. Friday, Mahopac 2-1 at John Jay Cross River, who's 2-1. Friday, Somers 3-0 at Yorktown, that big rivalry, who's 1-2. Lakeland, who's 1-2 at Lourdes, who's 1-3. Walter Panas, who's 0-3 at Brewster, who's 2-1. Nyack, who's 0-3 at Clarkstown North, who's 1-2. Eastchester, who's 2-1 at Pelham, who's 3-0. That big rivalry, the Colonial Cup. Sleepy Hollow, who's 0-3 at Hallow Zee, who's 0-3. And finally, to round it all off, Mars Rye, who's 4-0 at Harrison, who's 3-0. The Game, they call it, that big-time rivalry, and we'll talk about that one. But if you're looking at the two leagues, again, there's the North League and the South League. The top three get an automatic bid into the playoffs. The fourth is the wild card. If you NFL fans out there, it's going to be a wild card where you're going to have to look at tiebreakers and stuff. So you really, if you're in these two divisions, you want to get into the top three because it's an automatic bid. Right. The next one is going to be a little more complicated. Right. But if you look at the North League right now, Mars Somers at the top. They're 3-0. The 3-0 in league play. John Jay Cross River, Mahopac, and Brewster are all 2-1 and 2-1 in league play. So really important games. Yorktown is 1-2. They're 1-2 in league play, tied with Lourdes, but Lourdes is 1-3 overall. Lakeland is 1-2, and they're 1-2 in league play. And to round it all off is Panas at 0-3. And when you go to the South League, Morris, Rye is 4-0. Harrison is 3-0. Pelham is 3-0. All 3-0 in league play. All tied for the top spot. Rye does get the advantage, though, because they scored more points. Really interesting on that one. But the next one in the fourth spot, Eastchester, who's 2-1. They're 2-1 in league play. Clarkstown North is 1-2, and they're 1-2 in league play. And then Nyack, Hallow Zee, and Sleepy Hollow are all 0-3. So they're trying to get things turned around. But that's kind of how the divisions are. And again, those top three are automatic bids if the season were to end today. That fourth one is kind of the tiebreaker part. But let's get into some of the games, Mars. The first one I want to talk about, league matchup. Two teams trying to get back into the race. Lakeland 1-2 at Lourdes, who's 1-3. These two teams have split the series 1-1 since 2004. Last time they played, Lakeland won in 2019, 22-20. Last week, Lakeland lost at Mamaroneck. Lourdes lost versus Brewster. And let's start with Lakeland. Offensively, Mars.
You said Mamaroneck?
Did I say Lakeland at Lourdes?
No, you said Lakeland. No, Lakeland lost to.
Oh, at Mahopac. Yeah, excuse me. I'm sorry about that.
I was going to say, I was like Mamaroneck.
I had Mamaroneck on my mind. Lakeland lost at Mahopac. Lourdes lost versus Brewster. Excuse me. But let's start with Lakeland. And offensively, I think they'll have a better opportunity running on the edges this week. Again, you're going up against a big group, but I don't think they're as fast as Mahopac and Lourdes. They're going to be tough to run inside the tackle box. Again, with that size, it's going to be hard to move people, but I do think they have an opportunity to get out on the edge and to make plays in the passing game with their quarterback, Stephen Dukash. Again, I apologize, I butchered his name. He had a touchdown last week, but he did have a really big interception, and he's got to cut down on those type of mistakes. Because this is a dual threat guy, and he has a mobility. He can get out on the pocket. He can make throws on the run, and I think that's actually better suited for him than just throwing in the pocket. So I would imagine to get them a little more comfortable, will move the pocket a little bit more. But they got to get some of their weapons the ball, right? Tyler Ronk, number 11. This kid is 6'1" guy. He was a really reliable guy for them in the passing game. Pass protection is going to be key. It didn't hold up too well last week. There was a lot of pressure for the quarterback, which resulted in mistakes. Can they fix that up? Because when he's protected, when he's confident, he makes some good decisions and some good throws, and it leads to more explosive plays. Defensively, Marshall, going up against that double wing offense, you're going to see those tight end heavy looks. You're going to see sometimes them shoot out a flanker to get someone out of the box, but you're going to see some heavy running the football, especially often. They'll mix it up. Everything looks the same, but one will be a fullback up the gut. It'll be off tackle. There'll be a little bit of counters. But the last couple games, Carl Lund, defensive lineman, and Kevin Hickey have been out, which are, Lakeland's on a very big defensive unit anyway, and those two guys are big, stronger guys for them. Again, I don't know the status of them. If they're out, again, it puts a lot of pressure on those guys stepping in to make plays. They really like to attack off tackle. Lourdes does. And again, they have these big linemen. They're going to try to down block on those D tackles, and then, push down those defensive ends with the tight ends, and then they're going to have those backs kick out those corners, right? So they're trying to create a nice little seal off that tackle spot, and so this is going to be really big for the D tackles and defensive ends to not get pushed around. If they can hold strong, they can limit the damage, but it's going to be a four-quarter fight. Again, if you can get them to 3 yards or less on running plays, you're in a good chance to win, because Lourdes is going to stay consistent with the run. They're not going to give up on it, and they're not very comfortable passing in long down situations. So if Lakeland can do that, they're going to have a good chance. When I go to Lourdes, again, they were stuck in that COVID quarantine where they had 17 players out, and the majority of them are expected back. Again, I don't know the exact number, but to me, how much did they practice? When do they come back? How rusty are they? These are all questions that are looming in my mind. But they're definitely going to receive a boost, I can tell you that. And again, they're going to go with that downhill running attack in the double wing and get those halfbacks involved again in Salato and DeSocio. And their fullback Matthew, who had a touchdown last week. So they, if they can get their arsenal going back, I think they have a size advantage with their offensive line and tight ends. They can move people around and control the tempo of this game. Defensively, again, can they generate that pressure up front? Can they help their secondary out, Mars? This defense has given up, 33 points a game, which is 14th out of the 16 single A teams. Again, too many big plays defensively, too many points. They got to play, do a better job of getting complementary football, which is bump and grind on the offense. And defensively, you could be a bend defense, right? But you can't give up the amount of points and big plays that they do. It makes it tough. So defense is going to be big. Can they avoid the big plays, Marsh? What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, look at this matchup. I feel like it kind of favors more of the Lourdes perspective, because the fact that they're getting back a lot of the guys that they were missing, and on top of that, they have the size advantage. And I feel like when you look at Lakeland, it's really going to rely on this front seven to really not only set the edge, but really to continue to keep the play at the line of scrimmage, right? Yep. That's going to be the big focus for this game from definitely the Lakeland point of view. And from Lourdes, it's going to be about going back to what you're naturally good at, which is running downhill, running the power types of plays, and then on top of that, try to get some pressure, right? I feel like defensively, it's just been a struggle all season so far, and I feel as if for Lourdes, it's going to have to be about owning the time of possession and really just grinding this game out with what you do best, which is running the football.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to another matchup, Mars. Mahopac 2-1 at John Jay Cross River, who's 2-1. Last week, these teams haven't played each other in 12 years. Really interesting note, the last time they did play was in 2009. I was on that Mahopac football team that played them, and we won. At John Jay, too. So, interesting little tidbit there. But last week, Mahopac won versus Lakeland. John Jay Cross River had that big victory versus Yorktown. And I'm going to start with Mahopac. I actually think Mahopac is the favorite in this game. And I know that might surprise some people watching, but I think they have a clear size advantage. I think they're a bigger team. I think they're a more physical type of play team. And I've been impressed with their offensive line play, especially their running game, Mars. Their counter action under center. They like to pull the guard and the tackle, and they run downhill with guys like Perone and Koch, who have both impressed me with their versatility and their ability to run with strength. Again, Perone is not a very big guy, right? But he runs hard. He runs through contact. And Koch is kind of that speed guy who is shifty enough that you can't really get a good shot on him. And these are guys that they can line up in the backfield and sometimes motion them out into the slot, right? So these guys have been really impressive guys. And to me, the engine of this team is that offensive line and that running game, which sets up the passing game for them. Defensively, to me, it's all about funneling everything into the tackle box. Your eyes got to be on guys like Palladino and DiChiara, especially when they're at the quarterback spot, where when they're at the quarterback spot, the pass plays drastically go down, right? And if they're going to be pass plays, they're probably going to be quick ones. So you got to keep those eyes on those guys because they are super dynamic runners. That if they get an open field, there's not many people who can catch them. But force them to get inside the tackle box and make the tackle within 7 yards of the line of scrimmage. And I think you'll have some success. Let's go to John Jay Cross River, Mars. To me, again, can I call out a unit? Is that all right if
Sure.
I call?
Go ahead.
I'm looking at this offensive line. I think this offensive line has the biggest test ahead of them for John Jay. And I'm looking at guys like Garofalo, Galea, Saletti, and the rest of them. If you want to be referred as a team that could win this section title and compete with teams like Rye and Somers, they're going to need to win up front against fronts like Mahopac, right? Physical, big fronts, bigger than them. And so they got to get a body on a body. They got to seal guys from the hole and allow their playmakers to hit it, right? And the first guy I'm looking at, I'm looking at this offensive line, to me is going to be the most important part of this offense is can they block the physical front of Mahopac? And then I look at their playmakers, right? The first one is Tyler Palladino, who's been really good for them. He lines up at the running back. He lines up at wide receiver, quarterback. He's a defensive back. Last week, he had 127 yards, 3 touchdowns, and to me, was a guy who can produce some of those power running plays, which are extremely important, those hard-earned run plays, and he showed he had the capability of doing that. He's going to need to do that again, especially this week. And then look at a guy like Chris DiChiara, right? Had a bit of a quiet night last time, on the offensive side at least, 65 yards rushing on 17 carries. Can he find some space? Again, sometimes I see him catching a little bit too much dancing, but can he find some sliver? And maybe moving him around will help him out a little bit too. And they do that. And let's see if maybe he can win some one-on-one matchups. But another important player to me is their quarterback, Craig Galea. I think it's not going to be easy running in between and running consistently against this defense, especially in the tackle box. They're going to have to make plays in the passing game. And again, he was 13-18 last week, 143 yards. He's got to protect the ball. Mahopac has done a pretty solid job outside the Somers game of taking advantage of turnovers. And he threw an interception last week. But be smart with the football, make quick, decisive decisions, and then be strategic in how you attack downfield to a guy like Zaccanino, who last week he had 5 catches, 113 yards, and a touchdown. But they have weapons. And they're going to have to win those one-on-one matchups in coverage, guys like Shapiro and Savastano. If you guys are, if these skill guys are what I believe they can be, which is a dynamic group, they have to win one-on-one matchups. And they have to find holes in the zone coverage if they run zone, right? They're going to have to make big plays for this offense because it's not going to be that easy running the football. So it's going to be really important for them. They're going to have to make some contested catches, right? You got to make plays for your quarterback. And to me, it's got to be relying on these skill guys. Defensively, Mars, it's all about stopping the run to me. You got to use, again, you have a size disadvantage. They like to bring stunt. They like to create penetration. They're going to need to. They're going to have to use their speed, create negative plays, but don't run all the way up the field, right? Because when they run that counter action, they're going to run right underneath it. So you got to make sure you're smart when you stunt, smart when you penetrate, squeeze down the plays when you're supposed to. Don't just run up the field like a lunatic. You got to play extremely aggressive. And when they go into their spread looks, Mars, Mahopac likes to attack on the quick slants, on the outs when they go into the spread. And when they hit a big play or cause a turnover, they're going to go into the eye. They're going to go play action and try to hit some deep passes with some max protection. So, again, I like John Jay Cross River's team, the staff. They're well coached. Again, this is going to be a big test for them, and I actually think Mahopac is the favorite, Mars. What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm going to agree that I feel like when you look at this matchup, it's first I remember that game you were playing, and I was you were a junior when they played. I was an 8th grader when that was going on, and That's just wild, right? That's just been that long since that game has been played. And when you look at this team, this matchup, really, Mahopac is the favorite. And I feel like they do have the size advantage. They do have the strength advantage. And it really has to be rided on the offense, the play of the offensive line and of their backs in Perone and in Koch, right? They have been really the cogs of this team because of how effective they have been at running the ball. And I feel like that's what Mahopac's best at right now, is just running the football, right?
It sets up everything for the offense.
It sets up everything else. And I feel like they've been doing it so effectively that it causes teams to kind of bail out for the run, which then allows for the pass to open up. But I feel like they just need to continue doing that in order to really open up the rest of their offense. Defensively, it's about their front seven, man. Yeah. They just have been dominating and having their way with a lot of these offensive lines. I mean, I feel like the only team I saw that was really competing was Somers, obviously,
and they had difficulty running.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, the defense has just been clicking, and I feel like for them, it has to be about setting the edge and really forcing everything back into what best suits you, which is your D line. From John Jay's perspective, I feel like you mentioned this that they want to be considered one of the top tier programs, right? And they have. Well, they have been. Yeah. And I just feel like this season it's been kind of a roller coaster ride of knowing consistency of how are they going to really be that same team that's just been dominating.
Let's in the spring, Mars, Rye, right? They won their regional. Everyone's like, Rye's back. Somers won their regional, lost a lot of players. Everyone's like, yeah, Somers is going to compete. Cross River's like that team that, hey, they were in the regional, they lost to Somers, but when you talk to people, and we'll get into this more when I make the game pick, talk to people around circles, they don't have that same Cross River is back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I agree. I feel like when you look at Cross River, though, on the offensive side, they have the skill players. They do have the speed. But the problem is they do have a disadvantage when it comes to size and strength here. And I feel like it's going to have to be about giving their skill players the ability to make a play in open space, get them in a one-on-one, and see what they can do. And specifically, I'm looking at guys like DCR. I mean, I feel like I've been saying this guy is gonna have a game where.
Can I just tell you, defensively, he made big time plays. Yeah, he made that big tackle at the one. They tried to target him one-on-one with one of their receivers at the end of the game. He shut it down 2 times. Again, I'm just talking offensively.
Yeah, because defensively he was great. Offensive side, I feel like we're waiting for him to make a big showcase of a game, and I feel like it's always every week there. I keep saying it. Oh, this game I'm seeing it coming. This game I'm not gonna make a call when it's gonna happen. I just know that it has to happen for this offense because they need him to show up and make a play because they've been itching for it. I feel like they've just been waiting for that big play to happen. And like you said, we got to win those one-on-one matches for sure. Defensively, it's really about stopping the run, right? You stop the run, you create some negative plays up front, and you put the pressure on this team to try to make those third and longs, right? To make those first downs that have been difficult. And I feel like it's going to be about, whenever, especially when you see those spread formations, don't expect something wild to happen. You got to be efficient, be smart, especially on those short routes, and just make the play, right?
And that's to me, they talk about that DB is probably the best part of their defense. They got to make some plays on these receivers, right? They got to make some plays. The Cross River defensive backs, they got to make some plays, not just on the defensive side, right? Who's going to step up and win those one-on-one matchups? That's going to be big. Mars, let's go to another game. And this is a big rivalry game right here. Eastchester 2-1 at Pelham was 3-0. The Colonial Cup, Mars. Big-time matchup in the South League. Eastchester's 4-1, and they have won 3 straight versus Pelham, including that win in the spring season where they won 21-14 on the fake field goal, Mars. That still has to be eating at Pelham's craw from the spring. But last week, Eastchester won at Tappan Zee. Pelham won versus Clarkstown North in overtime. And we're going to start with Eastchester offensively. Last week, they rushed for over, I believe, 300 yards, Mars. Sensational job running the football, and a big-time credit has to go to that offensive line led by their big left tackle, Chris Howard, who is an anchor, but a bunch of those guys on the line played big time, and they like to go into the gun. They like to be in spread. They'll bring in an H-back, but you're going to see a heavy dose of halfback and quarterback runs, and it starts with their running back, Dom Sparadino, the junior. Mars, this guy is about 5'8", but he rushed for $187 and 3 touchdowns. This guy is a slippery guy, Mars. He's hard to get a good shot on. He just seems to slip through your hands. This guy has been really, really solid for them. And their quarterback, who I think is an underrated guy, Gabriel Diaversa Herbert. This guy, he had 160 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Again, you're going up against a physical and fast front. It's really going to test Eastchester's offensive line. So I would imagine their quarterback is going to try to do a little bit more rollouts. Expect to see some counters try to counter the aggressiveness of Pelham's defense and some read plays. But I thought the quick passing attack last week, which is going to be huge this week, I thought Eastchester did a pretty good job in the quick passing attack. They're going to need to do that again because Pelham comes after you. Defensively, it's about stopping that physical rush attack again. Different rush styles. Eastchester is kind of more of a stretch running style. They want those linemen to be pushing, and those backs are shifty guys who are going to find holes. Pelham's going to run right at you. I mean, there's no mistake about it. So it's stopping that physical rush attack, and the important thing is to keep Pelham's quarterback inside the pocket, because when he gets off platform, when he rolls out, he seems to make the bigger plays. So force him to throw in the pocket, try to create a nice little cocoon around it, and if you can get some pressure, especially internally, I think it'll help you out. When I look at Pelham Mars offensively, it starts with the offensive line, similar to Eastchester, physical. They did a really good job last week. And they're a downhill rushing attack. And when I look at the running back, Thomas Shelton, he's one of the best players in this class. 93 yards rushing and a touchdown, 43 yards receiving and a touchdown. Again, they'll go into the gun, they'll go into the spread, they'll go into two-back gun. But I also like the screen game they showed last week, and I think that's going to be a big part of the game plan this week. Again, that screen game was pretty nice to the running back. They did some screens to the wide receiver. It's a nice little counter attack that they have. I'm just looking to see if this passing attack can continue to make plays. They made it last week, which to me was the difference in the game when they won, right? We know they're a physical attack. We know that they'll give us screens, but can they make some downfield throws? And they did. Callum Reen, he was 9 of 17, 148 yards, 2 touchdowns, including a big-time 38-yard touchdown to I believe it was Mateo Johnson. It slips my mind, but that's going to be big. Defensively, Mars, this is a good defensive unit. I really like this defense. They have playmakers at each level. They're number 3 in points allowed out of the 16A teams, Mars. To me, it starts up front with them. I think they're going to see a lot of that stretch style off-tackle runs. Starts at the defensive line, guys like Campbell and Green. They got to dictate this game by creating penetration and staying gap responsibility. It's going to be big. When they do these stretch kind of offense, it's really trying to test not just the point of attack, but also the cutback lanes. So it's going to be huge for this defense to rally to the football. Mars, what do you want to talk about on this rivalry?
Yeah, this is definitely an interesting game. I feel like of the two, I'm looking at Pelham as being the bigger surprise of
guess whose dark horse it was before the season.
You were calling it for a while now, and I feel like when you look at this game, it's going to be a showdown because of the fact it's a rivalry game for sure. Yes. And I think that when you look at Eastchester, you have a great duo in the halfback and in the quarterback, and I feel like you have these runs that have just been very impressive, but it all really has to go along with the offensive line, and they have to play a great game against a very tough Pelham defense, and that's not an easy thing to do, especially with how well this front seven for Pelham is, right? I feel like the offensive line is definitely going to be the big thing to watch in this game, because when you look at Pelham, right, there's a lot of things you can say on the offense, right? The offensive line has been very solid. They just need to establish the run and everything, but the defense is really what's most important about Pelham. They are very impressive. They have been dominant, and they have been really showing that they are keeping these games in the momentum, right, for Pelham, right? They have just been very good, and I think they need to cause disruption. They need to keep contained, and they need to really close down on any outside type of runs that go there and to attempt to go on them, because if they do, then this defense is definitely going to be showing out like normal, and I think this will be an interesting game to see.
Let's go to another game and another rivalry. Somers 3-0 at Yorktown, who's 1-2, renewing this big-time rivalry. They've had some classic fights over the years between these two programs, and Somers is 7-4 versus Yorktown. Last time they played in 2019, Yorktown did come out on top, 30-12. Last week, Somers beat Walter Panas. They pretty much cruised on that one. Yorktown lost a heartbreaker to John Jay Cross River, where there was boatload of penalties and controversy. Did they get in at the end of the half? But it doesn't matter at this point, right? And so let's start with Somers. Okay, offensively, again, they were dealing with some injuries up front. I believe Polito's back, if social media serves me correctly, which would be a big boost to this offensive line. But I thought the offense has been getting better, and that to me is a dangerous sight for everyone else in the class. It starts with that quarterback, Matt Fitzsimmons. He was really efficient last week, 14-18, 178 yards, 3 touchdowns, threw touchdowns to 3 different receivers in Mancuso, Kapika, and Kraus. But multiple guys made plays for this offense, which to me shows balance. And when they're balanced, I think this is now a complete football team if they can continue to show that. Ravidas had a rushing touchdown. Derek Marcus had a touchdown. Balance is key. And when I look at Yorktown, they like to change up their defensive line. They come in with a normal base package, which has bigger defensive tackles, and then they like to come in with a bit of a NASCAR package, a little bit undersized, but bring more speed. And to me, to get the rushing game going, I think they want to try to attack, especially when they're in that NASCAR series. That's where you want to try to run the ball. And the way you do that is you get ahead of the chains. Okay, you want to try to keep up tempo when they like to substitute, try to catch them off guard. So maybe change up the tempo a little bit. But again, I think they're going to run with the power stuff and test the strength of Yorktown up front. And then you're going to see some of that play action. And if Fitzsimmons can stay as efficient as he has and has been improving, this is going to be tough for Yorktown to stop. Yorktown likes to be aggressive, right? They like to come at you. They like to bring some pressure with the linebackers over the edge or up the gut. And I think Somers is going to, they want to create good angles on these guys. They want to try to catch them when they're in those NASCAR series, try to running the ball. And they're going to see some play action attempt. Defensively, this unit is really strong. I mentioned the offense trying to work things out. Defensively, they've been strong since the get-go. And this is the number 1 defense in points allowed in A. They like to stunt. They like to be aggressive. To me, the linebackers and Kraus, he's been a stud for them. Defensive lineman Dylan Fowler last week had 9 tackles, 3 tackles for loss, and a sack. Up front, they're really stout. And in the secondary, they like to play physical in the run game. They like to do some bump and run man coverage. They make it difficult to complete passes, especially if you can't pass protect. And so they're going to stick to their identity. The big thing to me to focus on is obviously eyes have to focus on McKnight, who is back from Yorktown, who is a stud player for them, running the ball, moving him around as a wide receiver. All eyes got to be on him. He is a bit of that engine on. He is a tremendous player. And to keep Myrelis in the pocket. He is at his best when he is rolling and where he can attack, whether it's run or throw on the run. That's when he's at his best. But if you can keep in the pocket, force him to be a pocket passer, and you got some guys up front, get your hands up. He's not the tallest guy, right? You can kind of mess with his vision. You can kind of mess with his momentum. When I look at Yorktown, Mars, to me, again, whatever penalties happened, whatever mistakes last week, I expect this team to bounce back. This is a gritty program, gritty coached football team, veteran players coming back, and to me, it starts with this offensive line. They need to play big and physical this week against a really tough front seven, and I'm looking at Bouchage, Baker, Bowen, Capelli. These guys are going to have to help lead the way offensively if they're going to have a chance to win. They got to win up front, right? No team is unbeatable, and you're at home. This is an opportunity now to bounce back in a big way. And they have a couple guys who can hurt you running the ball. And it starts with McKnight, who had 221 yards rushing and 2 rushing touchdowns, Mars. He was sensational. He's more of the power back. He's a slasher guy. But then they have Carter, who's a bit of a speedy guy. They have Carlin, who's a shifty guy. They could throw a couple different guys to run the football. To me, again, having McKnight back helps create a more dynamic offense. But they can use multiple guys. The thing I'm looking at is this pass attack. Can they be more consistent passing the ball? Myrelis, last week he had a rushing touchdown, a passing touchdown. But again, they weren't very efficient throwing the football. And I'm interested to see, can they get guys like Carlin and Price and DeBellis the ball in space, attacking rollout? Again, if he sits in the pocket, there's going to be a lot of pressure. So they're going to try to roll him out. They're going to try to get designated sprint outs. I think that's a smart idea where, hey, you can have the option to run because he's a deadly runner, right? But you can't turn the ball over. You got to be more efficient, got to be smart. Defensively, again, I think Somers is going to test off tackling on the edge on this defense. Can they hold up, right? I mentioned that they do different packages. They have the big package where they bring in, this big defensive lineman. I think it's Mariki. The kid's about 6'4". Again, they like to substitute, keep guys fresh. This defensive line is going to have to get big, right? They're going to have to play big, They got to get penetration and stifle this rush attack and get them into spread looks, right? Because, again, they're more comfortable being ahead, running the play action, and they have a young quarterback who I know has been getting better, but to me, you would rather put the game in his hands where you can bring those NASCAR packages, where you can bring pressure and try to, again, force some turnovers. Because Yorktown, that's their identity. They want to be aggressive. So you got to win the early downs. Is going to be huge. Mars, what do you want to talk about on this one?
Yeah, there's definitely going to be a big-time game because, I mean, these are two prominent programs in A. I feel like when you look at the A section, the section in class, Somers and Yorktown are always those top teams that you're always referenced as being a powerhouse. Now, obviously, going to reference Rye. You're going to reference John Jay Cross River.
Yeah.
But these teams are definitely, it's been a rivalry for a long time. They've always competed. When you look at Somers, they are probably, in my opinion, if it's not Rye, it'd be Somers as being one of the most impressive teams because, you have some guys that you had to replace. I mean, you're losing Kaiser, right? And you still have, a stout team. Now, offensively, it was slower, right? It was slower to bounce into the full capacity of what they could be, especially the first game of the season. It was a little bit slower than what most people were expecting. But they are definitely showing that they have the ability to run downhill and play, with their type of game, right? They have this offensive line with Jake Polito is now coming, based off of social media reports that he's back, right? And I feel like having Jake Polito in your offensive line definitely increases your odds of being able to run the ball whichever way you want to. He's a pancake machine. We call him what, IHOP? Is that you call him IHOP.
Pancakes 24/7.
Pancakes 24/7. The point is that having that guy back on the field is definitely going to help your offense. And Somers has to do what they do best, which is run the ball and then really open up a lot of the other components of their playbook.
To me, the passing attack early was Somers' go-to, and they had some hiccups. But you're seeing a run attack like they're getting more balance, which if they can, that makes his team more deadly.
Yeah, exactly. And defensively, I think that's what's been more impressive from Somers is that they just have been so stout that they've been stuffing teams, right? And I feel like they just need to continue doing what they do best and just play aggressive, right?
Yep.
They really play that be in your face type of mentality. And really, I think that you need to keep the line of scrimmage in your possession, right? Own the trenches, and I think that'll be what they are looking to do this game. And from Yorktown, it's been a struggle, right? You had some some people get hurt, a little bit banged up, and now you're getting some of these guys back. And I feel like it has to really depend on the offensive line of how this offense is going to be moving, whether or not they're going to have a good run or they're going to have, a mixture of multiple different things that they can do on the offensive side. Defensively, they need to have the defensive line needs to step up. You're playing against a good Somers offensive line, right? Jake Polito, by social media reports, is coming back.
So it makes it even better,
the question is going to be, how do you match that? Are you going to, are you going to match this level of play that Somers is trying to regard themselves as being the best offensive line in Section 1A? Do you match yourself to that now?
Yep.
And do you compete? And I think that's going to be a very interesting matchup, in my opinion.
Let's go to the game of the week, Mars. And it's the game. They call it the game. It's Rye 4-0 at Harrison, who's 3-0. Big-time rivalry. I think they had their little lunch get-together between the Harrison players and the Rye ones, breaking bread before war, like we used to do back in the Mahopac Carmel days. I always found it interesting. Harrison, they were wearing their varsity jackets, and Rye was wearing their suit and ties. It was a nice little distinction between the two, showing respects before you guys go at it. Always love that stuff. But let's make no mistake about it. Rye has owned this series of late. They're 18-1 versus Harrison. They have won 11 straight. Last time they played in the spring, it was a nice back-and-forth game. They won 21-13. And last week, Rye won versus Sleepy Hollow. Harrison won versus Nyack. And when I look at Rye, let's start offensively. They scored 28 or more points in 3 straight. And again, we talk about balance. And they're a group that has shown the ability to hurt you multiple ways. But the key cog of this offense has to be with that bad man, Mars, Caden Whaling, right? I mean, he leads Section 1 in rushing. Last week he had 218 yards and 4 touchdowns. Him running behind this scrappy offensive line with their H-back and their tight ends and their fullback H-back, Tepedino, whatever you want to call it. They have a really potent rush attack. And it's kind of a stretch play, right? Where these offensive linemen are not huge. They're not just blowing guys off the ball, but they do a good job of sealing guys, stretching out the defense, and Whaling, who has really good vision and patience, finds a hole and hits it, right? So it's a really nice, they have a really nice smoothness to them. And he showed, Whaling, I really like the way he runs. He's not the biggest guy, but he always seems to be falling forward, shows really nice patience and burst, and then the play action off of it. When you keep getting hit with Whaling, you see the safeties and the DBs start getting closer to the line of scrimmage, and then that's when the play action comes, and it could be really deadly. And their quarterback, Kovacs, on 115 yards passing last week. He's also a guy who can take off and run. He had 51 yards rushing. That power run and play action is deadly. Because they also got weapons, right? You talk about the wide receiver spot, Barlett, Surhoff, who's a tight end, McRedmond, McComb. I mean, they have guys who can hurt you. But obviously, Harrison has shown, not just historically, in the spring, but this season that teams have been able to run on them. Even though they've been a bend but don't break defense, teams have had success running the ball. I'm expecting Rye to have a heavy dose of Caden Whaling and go play action off of that. Defensively, Mars, it feels like someone new, and we talked about it in multiple shows, someone new steps up each week for this defense. And they like to move around. They like to be aggressive. They like to bring pressure and stunts from different guys. They're not big guys, right? But a lot of athleticism they like to put out on the defense. And the big thing to me, when you're playing the option, besides being disciplined, what do we talk about, Mars? Winning early downs. Harrison likes to play with some tempo as well. It's not just the option. They like to bring some tempo to try to get defenses on their toes, and so that they can make the correct checkoff. So the big thing to me is kind of disguising what you're showing early on, changing it up, and just being disciplined on your reads. They like to have a lot of space to create some lanes. This is an interesting matchup to me, but again, talk about some of the guys who have made big plays for them. Garnett, Swarak, who has been big for them, Berkery, Surhoff, Tepedino, Meade had an INT. Again, these guys, someone new comes, but there are some steady faces like guys like Garnett who can make a lot of plays. When I look at Harrison, Mars, offensively, they run the option offense, but they know how to hit some big plays. Again, this is not a bump and grind type of option offense. They've hit some big runs and some big pass plays. The offensive line, they have those wide splits like I was talking about. They have those big guards in Ranello and Haynes, and then some of those tackles and centers who can move, guys like Ventriglio. Really interesting dynamic on that offense. They like to create some nice little space and some good angles for the offensive linemen as sealed defenders. But to me, it starts with their running back, A.J. Troilo, who is the engine of this offense. Last week, 118 yards and a touchdown. Really solid player, not talked about enough. Galuzzo's another guy who can spell Troilo. He had a 32-yard touchdown last week. And then their quarterback, Nick Garcia. He's going to be huge in this game, not just making run plays, because Rye's going to be trying to bail out to stop Troilo, right? It's going to open opportunities for him. But to not turn the ball over, turnovers killed them in the spring, which gave them an opportunity to pull the upset. But they couldn't because they turned the ball over way too much, especially in the red zone. And it's going to be huge for their quarterback not to do that. And a guy to keep in mind, Chris McLaughlin, Mars, their receiver. Short guy, electric speed. He has made a play almost every week. He had a long touchdown last week that really put the nail in the coffin for Nyack. He is a guy on the quick passes and the play action who can put a dent in this game and spark it in their favor. Mars, before I go to the matchup and player to watch, what do you want to talk about with these two rivals?
I mean, this is the game, right?
They call it the game.
This is the game. This has been one of the more famous rivalries in this area, and I feel like, as much as the series has been owned by Rye, there's been so many competitive matchups here, and last year was one of those battles, right? I remember quite clearly when I believe we both picked Harrison.
Yeah, we did. If
you want to bring it up, and we were calling.
Bring it up, that.
And I'll call you out on here. You were calling for Harrison to bring their goggles with him.
I did.
We both definitely been called out a little bit because of our pick, but it's all been nice and fun and everything. But this game has always been a very interesting one, right? So the tensions are always high here, right? But when you look at Rye, I feel like this is just one of those teams that have just been, are filled with talent on all different levels, right? And I think that when you look at the most talented of them all, is Caden Whaling, and I've been talking about this guy since week one. Everyone knows who he is. Everyone knows how dominant he is. So I don't have to go into the whole thing. And obviously, I can always just mention the fact that I think that he's like the face of this class, because it's like when Kaiser leaves, Caden Whaling walks in, and now he's the guy that everyone is scared of. But it's not even just him. You have this offensive line that's been scrappy. You have these bunch of these weapons that have been very impressive. But I think that the way that they basically use Caden Wheeling is almost like we're going to dominate you with the run, and then we're just going to trick you and start doing some play action passes and really hit you where it hurts. And I think that's just been super effective for them. Defensively, they've just been stout. They've been each guy, a different guy every.
And again, they're similar to what they were in the spring, right? Their teams have been able to drive, but they just can't punch it in.
Yeah, exactly. And I just think that this defense is just is so fluent. They're all in unison. There's no guy that you say we got to watch out for this dude. They've all been contributing to this defensive success, and you definitely have to applaud them for that. And for Harrison, it's really just about being efficient, right? I think that's the big thing about this game.
Yeah.
Is can Harrison be efficient? When you compare this to the spring season, they were not efficient,
yeah,
and the game was still a game, right? And I feel like if they were more efficient, you wonder what the outcome could have been, right? And I think that's going to be what they walk into this game. Coach should be telling them every single second, be efficient. We can move the ball, right? We've proven that they can move the ball in their scheme. It's the question is, can you punch it in and can you hold on to the ball is going to be the question for going forward to this game.
Let's get to the game picks, Mars. And last week, me and you both had really good 7-1. Pretty solid. Our friends over at Low HUD went 6-2, so we beat up on those Low HUD guys last week. But overall, Mars, I'm 19-5 in A games. You're 17-7, and Low HUD is 19-5. They're doing a pretty good job over there. Let's get into it, Mars.
Let's rock and roll.
First one up, Mahopac 2-1 at John Jay Cross River, who is 2-1. Again, I'm going to say this. Mahopac is physical. They can run the ball. They have been shown that they can stop the ball. The last time they played Cross River was in 2009 when I was a junior in high school, and Mahopac won at Cross River. I actually had the game-winning touchdown. Nice little funny tidbit out there.
On the back there.
I am patting myself on the back, but reliving those old days. But that's how it tells you how long ago it was. But John Jay Cross River. And again, I called out the offensive line before, and I'm going to say this. Okay, I think Mahopac is the favorite in this game. And I look, I'm not a gossip guy, right? But when you talk and you ask around and, what do you think about Class A? Who are the top teams? Rye and Somers keep coming up. And they don't mention Cross River. And Cross River was in the regional in the spring. And there's a lot of people who think, and rightfully so, that Mahopac is going to run over Cross River physically. That can Cross River match them physically. And I was leaning so hard at Mahopac, and I'm thinking I'm going to pick them, but I think Cross River is going to prove them wrong. I think Cross River is going to prove some of those people, and I'm not going to mention names because, again, I don't want to put anyone on blast, but I think they're going to prove that they can play a physical style when needed. I'm looking to see which Cross River defense is going to come. The one that played Lourdes or the one that stopped and made big-time plays in the Yorktown game. Because that's going to show, can this Cross River team compete for a section title? And that's where they want to go. Can this group compete for a section title? And it's got to win in physical matchups like this one. And so it would not surprise me at all if Mahopac wins. It really wouldn't. I said it multiple times. I think Mahopac should be the favorite going into this game, even on the road. That's how impressive their line play has been and their run attack. But I do think Cross River being at home, I think Cross River will prove the haters wrong. I'm going to go with John Jay, Mars.
Well, this was definitely a tough one for me to pick. I've always been a fan of Cross River. I've always been, talking high about their offensive line, of how well they played in the past few seasons, and I think their coaching has been fantastic, and I think they're just as a unit, as a team, it's been very impressive. Offensive line, just offense and in general for Mahopac has definitely been transitioning. It's changed since the Somers game, and I feel like the run has been developing. The offensive line has been pushing forward, and
they've been balanced, but to me, the run game is opening everything.
Yes, and defensively they've been pretty impressive. The way the defensive line's been playing. I think that the way that Mahopac's been playing, I'm going to go with Mahopac here. I'm going to think that Mahopac is, I think that has a size advantage, and I think that this game is a very close one, to be honest with you. And I think that I could have, like you, for the same thing for your reasons, I could have picked either team here because how close I think this game's going to be. I just think that Mahopac, momentum-wise, has just been growing for themselves, and I think that Cross River, don't get me wrong, having a big win against Yorktown is definitely definitely a step in the right direction. But I feel like Mahopac has had the momentum on their side since the Somers game, right? Competing against Somers and then having 2 big wins back to back, is that going to carry over into Cross River?
Hater.
Hater.
All right, let's go to the next one. Lakeland 1-2 at Lourdes, who's 1-3. To me, Lakeland, I thought they showed some grit, although in the first half last week, they kind of let go of the rope, and I want to see them bounce back. I think they can have success passing the ball, and the quarterback with these weapons can make some plays. And Lourdes is bringing back a bunch of their players. They have the size. I think they can run. I think they'll be a little bit too physical for Lakeland. I'm going to go with Lourdes. Although the defense scares me, I do think the defense will make enough plays. I'm going to go with Lourdes on this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Lourdes. I feel like they have the size advantage, and I think they're just going to go back to what they do best and run the ball as much as humanly possible. And the defense is definitely not going to break as many times as they have in the past few weeks. I just think they're going to make enough plays. I'm going Lourdes.
Walter Panas 0-3 at Brewster, who's 2-1. There's another North League game. Walter Panas, I'm interested to see, how they come out in this one and how the offense comes out because, I know a couple games they played some option, they did some spread. The defense has to stop giving up big plays, though. And when I look at Brewster, they've had some big injuries, and even with those injuries, I still think they have weapons on the offensive side of the ball. That quarterback, Perello, he was a big hero for them, made a bunch of plays, really was put in a tough spot, and really shined, and I want to see if he could do it again. And defensively, I thought they answered last week, and I think they'll do it again. And they have won 4 straight versus Walter Panas. I think they're going to make it 5. I'm going Brewster.
Yeah, I'm going to go Brewster, too. I feel like just Panas doesn't have enough to really, kind of match their way against Brewster. I think they have the advantage. Brewster has the advantage on the offensive line and just some of the skill players here. I'm going Brewster.
Nyack 0-3 at Clarkstown North, who's 1-2. Mars, Nyack is another one of those teams getting better each week. We talked about it on previous shows. They ran the ball pretty well last week. I'm looking to see these Jean-Baptiste brothers, how they go, and Boutin, who all have been impressive running the ball and have gotten better. And again, this offensive line has some size to it. We know about some of those guys out there. My interest to see is this defense. Can they stop the big plays that Clarkstown North can hit in open field? So Clarkstown North's got to watch, but I like the physicality on the offensive and defensive line. I think they will hit a couple of those big run plays that break this game open. I'm going to go with Clarkstown North, Mars.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I'm going to go Clarkstown North. I feel like they just have that ability to make the big play, and I think that's going to give them the advantage here. I'm going Clarkstown North.
Sleepy Hollow 0-3 at Tappan Zee, who's 0-3, both in the South League, trying to get their first victory. And I think both these teams have shown some improvement over the last couple weeks. Sleepy improved offensively. They started off losing their quarterback, which is always a tough loss. But the defense has allowed too many points. They've allowed 35 points the last 2 weeks. Looking at one of my favorite guys, Mikey Scaglione, tough, gritty player to try to lead this defense to make some plays. Can they hold up front? That's to me. Tappan Zee, again, they've also improved offensively the last 2 weeks. Defensively, 35-plus points and 3 straight. Which defense is going to make plays? And they have a guy, McCarthy, who I really like. But their quarterback, Mooney, has made some really nice plays. He had 3 touchdowns last week. They have some weapons in Tarpey, Guarneri, Garrison. I think Tappan Zee's weapons are going to make a couple more plays than Sleepy Hollow. Tappan Zee's 3-1 versus Sleepy. I think they go 4-1. I'm going Tappan Zee.
I'm going to Sleepy Hollow here. I feel like this is definitely an even matchup. I just think that Sleepy Hollow just has some more of that, some more of those skill players, and I think their offensive line is just going to be kind of being the stable force here. I'm going to go Sleepy Hollow.
Eastchester 2-1 at Pelham, who's 3-0. This big-time rivalry for the Colonial Cup. Eastchester, last time they played this, they won it in the spring off that fake field goal. This rush attack is potent. The offensive line has been impressive. This has been a surprising group to me. But to me, can this defense stop the big plays? They gave up a couple last week that kept Tappan Zee in the game. Can they shore up that defensive side? Pelham, again, we know their identity is defense, and they have a really good defensive unit. Can this offense make plays in the passing game? I think that they do. I think they get revenge. I think they win this rival game. They win the Colonial Cup. I'm going with Pelham, Mars.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Pelham. I feel like their defense is definitely what's made me pick this game. Defensively, they've just been stout, right? And I feel like this momentum that they've had of being a top-tier defense in this class is definitely going to give them that advantage. I'm going to go Pelham here.
Somers 3-0 at Yorktown, who's 1-2. Another big-time rivalry, Mars. This Somers offense seems to be getting better and better. We know about the defense. It's the top unit in Class A. They're aggressive. They're fast. But I tell you what, I think Somers is going to get a really angry Yorktown team. They are at Yorktown. It's going to be a hostile environment. They're going to get great effort. Again, having McKnight back does make this offense more explosive. This is a colossal game for Yorktown, right? If they win, they're right back in it. If they lose, I'm pretty sure they're going to have to win out to make it the playoffs. So again, it's not do or die. I can't say it's do or die, right? Because if they lose, they still have a chance, right? But it makes things even more difficult. I was leaning really hard to pick the upset here and go with Yorktown, but I am going to go with Somers. And it's just because I want to see Yorktown play a clean game. They played a really good game 2 weeks ago, but a game against Brewster, I know that they were injured. They were more healthy this time around against Cross River, and I know that there's question marks on was he in, was he not in, right? But again, I'm looking at the other mistakes that were made, right? So again, I know football is a game of inches, and one play can go to your side, and that can make the biggest difference. I know that. And I have confidence in this Yorktown group. I think they're a talented group. I think they're a gritty group. But I got to see it. I think Somers' defense is a little more sound. They prevent bigger plays, and the offense just makes less mistakes. And so I'm going to go with Somers on this one.
Yeah, I'm also going to go with Somers. I feel like they just have everything going right for them. I feel like offensively they're getting better, right? I feel like they are developing the run, and I feel like this offensive line has just been a force. Yorktown definitely has had some really tough showings, and I feel like, and I agree with you, they just have to have a clean game, and I think this game is going to be very competitive.
I do.
I think
it would not shock me if Yorktown pulled the upset. It really would.
It would be very interesting to see. I just think that Somers just has more of the advantage here, and I think this is going to be such a fight.
This is going to be a fight.
It's like a toss-up game for me, and I think I'm going to pick Somers here.
Let's go to the game of the week, Mars. Rye 4-0 at Harrison 3-0. Who do you got in the game, and why?
Well, I mean, this is definitely one of those games where it's like it's always tough because everyone gets elevated to another level in a rivalry game, and we all know this. We can talk about the top rivalries in Section 1 all across the board, and you're always going to say, at any given day, this team and these two teams are going to compete, right? And I can say the same thing about Rye and Harrison. Now, granted, Rye has definitely dominated this rivalry for a very long time, but Harrison has always made the game competitive, right? They've kept it competitive in the more recent history, in my opinion. Especially last year, I feel like that was definitely one of the closer games they've had, because of the fact that it was close for what was it, 3 quarters?
It was close the whole time. It just
got away at the end. At the end, it just got away. So when I'm looking now at this year. I'm looking at Rye. Rye still has one of those powerhouse offenses. They have Caden Willing, who's now just an older version of himself that's more kind of defined and more all-around better, in my opinion. But this offensive line has been scrappy. They've been impressive. And I just feel like offensively they have everything clicking in the right direction.
Yeah.
Defensively, they've been doing well too. They've been kind of showing out all their abilities. And in Harrison, they still have the ability to make the big play. Now, the question is going to be, do they make the big play against this defense? And I just don't think they will be able to. I think that Rye has the advantage on all different fronts. I think Harrison is definitely... it's definitely a good team. I just feel like against Rye, this is not the year. I thought last year was definitely their spot. That was definitely a chance. This year, Rye just has too much for them, and I think they're gonna win this game. I'm gonna go Rye.
Again, you got a lot of big names, right? Whaling, Garnett, Tepedino, this offensive line, Kovacs, that balanced attack that Rye has. And on Harrison, they play that fast option that can lead to big plays. Turnovers in the spring, we talked about it, was a killer for them. Harrison has not won this game since 2012. It has been 9 years. This streak will come to an end, but it ain't coming to an end this fall. And I think it goes to 10 years. I'm going to go with Rye as well. And again, I actually like this Harrison team. I don't think this Harrison team gets as much respect that it probably deserves. I mean, this is a big play Harrison team. I just don't think defensively this is going to be their biggest test, and I'm not sure if they're ready for it right away. But I do think it'll be a competitive game. I think Rye will just have a little bit too much, and they're going to win at the end. All right, everyone, that was our show. We appreciate you guys for tuning in. We want to thank everyone, again, that follow us and gives us feedback, and we hope you have a great football-filled weekend, and we'll see you all very soon.